To start us off, I would like to bring up one of my favorite quotes from the classic film Jurassic Park from 1993. And it is when Ian Malcolm, played by Jeff Goldblum, the chaostician, uh, says, "Boy, do I hate being right all the time," as the T Rex starts to wreak havoc. And I feel like that is frequently something that you and I find ourselves saying, especially
Uh,
when politics by assassination starts to rear its ugly head.
oh yeah, and we're going to be talking about the most important assassination now. But just remember that also Rheinmetall boss was survived an assassination attempt just yesterday. So assassinations everywhere, and being right. Oh yeah, and also okay, I have a bunch of assassinations in my head. It's what it is these days, I suppose. I mean, it doesn't pay that well as it should, and people maybe should listen to us more. But
I think people don't like to be as dire, or maybe not cynical, but
it's
I
not.
think
It's,
pessimistic's a better word, I think.
I don't consider that pessimistic. I consider that to be just just you have to know the reality and accept it as it is before you get to solve any issues. Otherwise, you end up solving the wrong issues, not what's the actual problem, which is a thing. But oh boy, we're in just a hint. I've strictly forbade Alex from reading the article.
Yeah, this is new to me. So yeah, we can edge right into this because I'd be actually shocked, first of all, if anyone listening doesn't know what we're talking about. Obviously, former president, possibly next president, Donald Trump survived an assassination attempt. So obviously we have to talk about it. And someone else had to talk about it. And it was kind of too perfect.
It was our like for me, I'm a Girkin person, but when I meet Alex, then we have no choice. We must discuss Dugin. Dugin,
Alexander Dugin.
Dugin. Kanye West is our man.
Yeah,
Guy, legitimate quote. He said that Kanye West is ideological ours because whatever. However,
sure.
and this, by the way, is our second attempt at recording this
Mm-hmm.
because our first attempt went kind of nowhere.
Yep, and it was mired by technological issues that I think actually were a blessing in disguise. I think we're more focused now and not just sort of like seat of our pants recording, which sometimes is great.
It's 4:38
Yeah.
a.m. in the morning. I've been up all night because of it. But yeah, here we go. Because in the meantime, while we were just pausing and everything, it just got published in English. I'll start by where it's published. It's published on a place called Arctos, of which I know nothing about, and it was translated by one Konstantin von Hofmeister.
I don't know that guy, but I do know about Arctos because Arctos was it featured heavily, or I shouldn't say heavily, but it featured prominently in my favorite book ever, one of my favorite books ever by Ben Teitelbaum, War for Eternity. It was this publishing house founded back in '09 in India, but it was founded by a Swedish businessman named Daniel Freeberg. He was associated with white power music in Sweden at the time. And the company has like moved around. I'm just looking at the Wikipedia right now. It looks like it was in Sweden for a while. Then it was in Hungary. And I'm not sure where it is now, but it's sort of like you could call it like the publishing house of the alt-right, to use kind of a dated term. At this point, though, I think it's mostly famous for just putting out far-right literature, not like literary fiction, but just literature. And most significantly, it is the publishing house that translates Alexander Dugin's work and gets it put out to the West, which is why when Tucker Carlson in his infinite wisdom said, nobody's allowed to read Alexander Dugin, nobody translates his work. It's like, yes, it does. Yes, they do.
Tucker Carlson is mentioned in this article.
Oh,
Spoiler alert.
joy.
Okay, so we'll get to more serious stuff. It's just that our previous
Right.
conversation was like an hour of grimness, and this is where we've prepared. And yeah, here we go. I'll start because there are 5 paragraphs about of equal length. So I'll just read, and then we can discuss this.
And what is the title of this?
The globalists' desperate move to kill Trump.
Because yeah, of course it was the globalists, not a 20-year-old Redditor.
And we are not like absolutely. We're starting strong here. The assassination attempt on Trump was quite predictable. That is objectively true.
You know what? You know what? It's peak Dugin. He starts off, and you're like, okay, I'm listening. You say something very simple, very good, starting out, but you and I both know where this is going to go. I believe you used an analogy when we first talked about Dugin. It'll be a clown dancing on the ceiling by the end of this.
And then we don't have to wait far. We have to wait until the second sentence. There is no doubt that everything was organized by the globalists with the support of that part of the deep state that backs them. The only way to keep the mentor grandfather in power is to kill Trump, who would almost certainly win under the current circumstances. The shooter was immediately taken out by a Secret Service sniper to cover the tracks. Essentially, there was an attempt at a coup in the United States. How you like them apples?
It sounds like an Oliver Stone movie. Wow. He does not waste any time. Like I said, the very first sentence, very reasonable in a vacuum. Then the vacuum is removed and we know what he's actually saying. Oh my lord. Okay. Well, he is saying the quiet part out loud for a lot of people, I think, who are assuming this. Like I said in our boarded recording, I've already seen plenty of people on the right, or at least I should say accounts identifying as right wing on Twitter saying things along those lines, saying that, oh, this was, done by Biden, essentially, which is almost as crazy as the people on the left saying, oh, this was all staged, which is still happening online. Like people are still saying this stuff, which of course they are because it's the internet and we're probably going to be stuck with this and far, far worse down the line. But Dugin, got to give him credit, getting out in front of it. He's the first one. He's going to be able to be the hipster in the room and say, you guys are talking about conspiracy. I started that conspiracy theory.
And he goes on strong, man. The head of Ukraine's main intelligence directorate, Budanov, recognized as a terrorist in Russia, openly admits that Ukrainian sabotage groups have repeatedly attempted terrorist attacks against Putin. Yes. In Slovakia, there was an attempt to eliminate Prime Minister Fico, who opposes the support of the Nazi junta in Kiev.
He's still going with the Nazi stuff?
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, even Putin stopped doing that in the Tucker Carlson conversation. He basically just abandoned the Nazis in Ukraine pretense.
Well, not everyone can be as informed and hip all the time. I mean, give Dugin a break, okay?
Okay. But wait, he talked to Tucker Carlson a week later.
Potato. Come on.
Okay. Let's continue here.
Yeah. Now there has been an attempt on Donald Trump, who incidentally is highly critical of Zelensky and his regime. This is the true face of the hegemony and the unipolar world. Anyone who opposes globalism and stands in the way is first demonized through cancel culture tools and then physically eliminated. Murderers and terrorists, criminals and perpetrators of genocide who serve the globalists are portrayed as freedom fighters and he uses air quotes here, innocent victims. Kiev propaganda will surely claim that Trump shot himself in the ear, and the globalist media, which is built on cynical and cold-blooded lies, will imply something similar. He hasn't seen like Biden and people just that it's
well, right, yeah, that he's talking about the very fringe elements of the left in that sense who are saying that. There are people saying that, individuals are saying that, sure. I'm just trying to do this for the sake of argument that there is a certain nugget of truth that cancel culture and elimination are part of the same sort of continuum. I've made that argument myself. I mean, I've said that about you, is that you were a victim of cancel culture at its most extreme, though it was from people who probably love Dugin, which is quite ironic. But again, it's just the whole thing with Dugin is that he'll say something that is like maybe like 1% truth, and then the rest of it is just like this elaborate scheme. And also, this seems very, I mean, we're only 2 paragraphs in, but this seems very simplistic. It doesn't seem like, it's kind of like that Tucker Carlson interview where he wrote this more for, he like dumbed it down is what it feels like. Like it's dumbed down for a Western audience. Now, maybe that's just what his writing's like in Russian and it's just well translated, but it just seems kind of stupid at this point.
Meanwhile, my buddy Robert, who's sitting here watching football, just posted that UK government advisor warns assassination attempts becoming more likely. Yeah,
We've been
what?
saying that for fucking 2 years now. Come
Yeah,
on.
look, we deserve some credit here on this one, okay? Like objectively, but carrying on with Mr. Dugin because this is just the beginning of all this nonsense. Oh boy. Oh, okay. Just a little quiz here. Whom do you think is going to be the ultimate responsible person for this?
Um, well, I okay. So first off the top of my head, guess would be Joe Biden.
Oh, you're hitting that's like rookie
I know,
style.
I know. Okay,
Okay,
let me get a little.
very
Let me get a second guess. Let me get a second guess. Klaus Schwab.
no. Biden is like the fourth spot. There is no doubt that there is no doubt whatsoever. Okay, yeah, no doubt about the responsibility for the attempted assassination of Trump, the leading candidate in the United States presidential race, lies with the group around Obama, Blinken, Hillary Clinton, and the utterly senile Biden, who has warned that freedom is above democracy, meaning democracy and its laws are now suspended. In the name of freedom, to continue ruling, one can even kill. Liberalism is finally becoming totalitarian with all of the accompanying characteristic features, up to and including including the direct assassination of undesirable politicians. Of course, Biden said none of those things, but let us not get reality involved in this situation.
Right.
Like,
I mean, to be fair, I don't think, yeah, Biden hadn't made his comments yet when he wrote this, but that's convenient.
but I bet you didn't expect Obama to get involved so quickly.
Honestly, I'm not surprised. And I think it's partly because Obama did kind of insert himself into the public conversation again after the disastrous first debate. Now, I'm not giving Dugin credit. I'm just saying that Obama is in the conversation here. That's why I think this is more directed at a Western audience, not a Russian one.
I have always wanted to say this, so allow me the pleasure.
Please.
Thanks, Obama.
Oh man, I miss the days when we got to say things like "Thanks Obama," "Thanks Bush," and it was just that simple. But now, like, people actually want you to say things like that, or they expect you to, at least. I don't know,
Yeah,
and be
I
and
had
be
never
serious.
I had never used this saying before,
Yeah,
so I can now feel a little bit more awkward. Oh boy. Then he starts the part which I would call non-dumbing down. He sounds remotely like an actual philosopher in a way, ish.
Oh, he uses the word architecture in an abstract way. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. This is where he gets to play the smart kid, but not for very long though, because you'll see. The architecture of power in the world is now fundamentally changing from the sole dominance of the West to
Mm.
multiple poles. At least three Polish people, that is. I'll
Yeah.
translate it that way. This is multipolarity. This is
Wait a
multi.
minute. Sorry. So let's stop. From now on, multipolarity is three or more poles in a room.
They're all saying kurva and drinking vodka. Obviously, I mean,
And then the next phrase, just if you'll allow me here for a second, Trump represents the US as one of the poles. I didn't realize Trump was from Chicago. Sorry, that's my dumb joke for the for the night.
uh, Trump represents the United States as one of the poles, albeit the strongest and most influential. He owns a car. The pole Trump represents.
It's a total jalopy.
Of a multipolar world, globalists care little about the United States as they do about everyone else. They need planetary power, the absolute power of transnational capital. Ultimate power.
Yeah, what does he think that does he think the world is structured around like Emperor Palpatine? Like what is
Yes.
where did okay.
Objectively, yes. That's the main thing. They always think conspiracies. All countries, including America and Europe, neither America nor Europe are countries, but again, don't think about it. It's fine.
Don't think too hard.
Yeah, it's like bad. Are just tools in the creation of the world government. Trump stands for America and against the world government. Putin stands for Russia. Xi Jinping for China. Modi for India. and Orban, Fico, Le Pen, and the AfD for Europe. Now we know. Now we know. Let me see. Now. A multipolar world is a system where multiple sovereign nations hold power. In contrast, the globalists seek to dominate the entire planet. They gained significant control with the dissolution of Warsaw Pact and the collapse of the Soviet Union. And we're back to talking about the USSR. Amazeballs. Now, as their grip on power weakens, they're desperately trying to hold on. The globalists have finally moved to the tactic of direct terror. This is a fait accompli, not a series of random coincidences. It is time to strike back at the globalist network.
Right. Okay. Okay. It's not a series of random coincidences. Okay. Sounds good. That sounds like the cry of desperation from a very scared man.
Hey,
But
look. Well, look. And now we know. Eh?
I
I
guess I get.
mean,
Oh, excuse me. Why did he not bring up Kanye again? Kanye stands for America, obviously, at least according to him, by his
I mean,
logic.
Kanye is probably the only one still standing for true America, I presume.
What?
Like I
Okay,
said,
so
I presume. Okay.
right, right, right. But what confuses me is like it doesn't confuse me. It's just really funny that like he literally creates a list of boogeymen. Like he is being cartoonish, and like he's saying, and he's like praising Putin, Xi Jinping, Modi, Orban, Fico, Marine Le Pen, and the freaking AfD, as in the political party that might get banned in Germany because it's a little too Nazi esque. Like it's cartoonishly evil to the point where it's like, you're just doing the thing. You're doing the like, triggering, owning the libs thing, triggering and owning the libs. Like that's what that's for. Like I like yes, Putin and Xi. We'll say, or I'll use what my father-in-law says, Mr. Xi. Like Putin and Xi have met, but they have completely different agendas. Mr. Xi does not care about this.
I have a thing here. He did not mention the greatest ally that basically Russia now has. Where is Kim?
Yeah, where's Mr. Kim?
I
Yeah,
mean,
where's Little Rocket Man? Come on.
seems kind of lame to be like leave him out like that. Come on, you
Kind of
can't do that.
like a jackass move. Or excuse me, where's Iran? And you know what? Where is Palestine? Where are the Palestinians in this? This is very very mean of him. Very inconsiderate. I for one am going to write a sternly worded letter to Arctos Publishing.
Oh boy, now we get to our surprise guest in all this situation.
Yes.
Tucker Carlson told me in a conversation in Moscow that Trump seriously fears being killed by globalists. Tucker Carlson, you have admittedly told Dugin that Trump seriously fears being killed by globalists. That's a thing out now. You're an American. You can ask him. It turns out he had good reason. The more senile Joe descends into dementia, the more likely it is that they will start killing Trump.
Start killing him? Like when are they going to finish killing him? What are they talking? What's he
People have
talking
died.
about?
People have died and there are injured. God save America and all humanity from this criminal gang of liberals and globalists. If we do not stop them now, they will destroy us all. And then there's a link to Dugin's books.
Yeah, in all like in massive like bold text, Alexander Dugin's books can be purchased here, and I clicked on it just to see, and yeah, they actually have. There's a lot. Again, why is Tucker Carlson such an idiot or dishonest when he talks about how you can't buy these books? Yes, you can. I am looking at the storefront right now, Tucker. The only thing you can't get is the fourth political theory because it's not out yet. It needs to be pre-ordered. Okay. You know what? I do actually believe that Tucker Carlson at least believes that Trump seriously fears being killed by globalists. I think Trump fears being killed. He might call them globalists. I don't think he really cares though. I think that's just giving too much ideological credit to a man like Donald Trump.
I mean, to be frank, we literally read in full Dugin's article where I don't think we count as reasonable people. But what one
No.
thing the one thing that this is interesting to compare is that what Peskov said, the official Kremlin's position here, because he gave an
Mhm.
interview to Interfax and gave a speech from his position there, and he said, "quote." We do not think and do not believe that the attempt to eliminate presidential candidate Trump was organized by the current government, but the atmosphere that was created by this administration due to the political struggle. The atmosphere around candidate Trump provoked what America is facing today. The United States political system is such that it has repeatedly in history presented the world with an example of violence within the country during political struggles. The current administration's style of work is such that they prefer to resolve all issues from a position of strength, including in world affairs. No one ever tries to seek compromises. Now, in essence, the violence has been transferred inside the country. And he added that Russia has always condemned and condemns any manifestations of violence in the course of political struggle. Navalny, Razin bombings. Let us ignore this.
I was going to say the list goes on for hundreds
Yeah.
of years
And
at
then,
this
then
point.
he says, "We express our condolences to the family of the person killed in this attack. We sympathize and wish a speedy recovery to all those injured." And then there's a nice little added sentence there in the whole article, original one that goes like this. He added that Vladimir Putin has no plans to call Donald Trump after the assassination attempt.
I just you know what's really funny is that after reading that, I mean, because you had told me about this reaction earlier today in our aborted attempt at, making this conversation happen, and that sounds so much more sane now after having just read Dugin's little essay.
But in a way, it's kind of similar to Dugin's position. Like
Sure, yeah,
he
yeah.
spoke about administration style of work and all this stuff, which is why Biden came out like in between this with a speech that was basically platitudes, nothing
Hmm.
important. But he really mentioned the biggest thing was, and we saw it because we wanted to watch Copa America final game, but because we just watched Euros, and they just in a stream they just interrupted this and started showing Biden. But the goal was like the America has to be united, and that all the problems are solved at the ballot box, and like he really kind of made a message about unity and something,
Hmm.
which was
Yeah, and
interesting, really.
well, and it's something that I've mentioned, and I do have thoughts on that I'm still sort of working with, but I do think that there's a certain moral, I don't want to say monstrousness because that's a little too strong, but I do have a bit of like ethical disgust with a lot of the people. And I'm not saying Biden's doing this, even though he did play a part, but I do have a bit of ethical disgust with a lot of the people who used existential terminology. Actually, Biden was included in that too. They all, I mean, I don't know how much responsibility I describe to him, but I do have an issue with people putting politics, especially a presidential election or a presidential candidate, in such existential terms where he is a fascist, a monster, somebody who hates groups of people, so on and so forth, like as if those things are what motivates him. And I'm not saying they do or don't. I'm just saying that when you put things in those terms over and over and over again, and then say something along the lines of, well, political violence is never okay. Well, you did put things in existential terms. Now, I don't believe that rhetoric causes behavior. I think this 20-year-old kid was going to do something, and he maybe was influenced in some way or another, but he was going to do something anyway. And I find this idea of trying to like play the like sort of like, you know, I guess apologetic, like a gracious kind of magnanimous kind of person or candidate is just kind of silly right now. Like, if you really meant it, you would actually make some comment about how we've been doing politics wrong. And you can even maybe make a jab at Trump and say, like, well, he was doing things differently, and we thought we could be more like him to like maybe achieve something, and it didn't work, and this is what's happened. Like, just take the symbolic responsibility and you're going to win over a lot of people. But obviously that is asking probably too much. And
Yeah, but
anyway, I'll let you respond to that.
no. I will not respond to that. I just wanted to maybe explain to people why we're let's just say not extreme fans of Mr. Dugin, because I also just saying I also discovered found out about his Telegram stuff. Because if you think that he's only writing in this format where he just posts stuff, and then he gets like famous people translated. Oh, no, 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 no. That's not the case at all. Because, and I will read that one now, there's another post made to him earlier on his private Telegram channel where he's slightly different. See if you can spot the thing. The assassination attempt on Donald Trump is a revenge attempt by retreating liberal forces. Same stuff, same stuff. The nearly 250-year history of the United States is peppered with terror both against and by the top leadership. Oh, yeah. He mentions 4 presidents have been assassinated in office: Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley, and Kennedy. Then he speaks about how number of assassination attempts are unable to count, and everything. And but his main point here, because I'm not going to read his paraphrasation stuff, is like, quote, terror against its own citizens, Indians, Negroes, Chinese, communists, conservatives, terror against other countries, a huge list from Mexico to Russia, and a constant counter-terror against the leadership. Basically, Dugin just says that this is par for the course for because apparently United States are y'all terrorists, yo.
Okay, so I'm going to drop some history in here because this is a sort of joint history podcast, and I'm glad you brought this up because apparently Dugin doesn't know why most of our presidents have been assassinated, which is for typically pretty hyper specific reasons and has nothing to do with these grand theories of history or of American presence overseas or a multipolar world
Look,
being
it
forced
would
into
be
unipolar.
it would be enough if you had just said Dugin doesn't know.
Well, this is true, but I need to demonstrate this because it is worth mentioning why the first major assassination after Lincoln, because that was actually, I think, pretty significant to the background of like what was going on. It was a Civil War related. We had literally just had a Civil War. That is probably the least surprising assassination that we've ever had. But the assassination of James Garfield, you know why he was assassinated? Like who assassinated him and why?
Nope, no idea.
It was a man named Charles J. Guiteau. I think I got his name right there. And he shot President Garfield, and it took him 11 weeks to die of an infection specifically. And he was assessed during his trial and his autopsy. And it was revealed that he was mentally unbalanced because he had neurosyphilis, as in stage 4 syphilis, I believe is what the stage is. And the reason that he gave for shooting Garfield, was it because of the Gilded Age? Was it the rise of a globalist elite crushing the little guy? Was it a socialist revolution? Anything like no,
I
no.
would say yes to all of them.
Well, yeah, sure. Except no, it was because Guiteau was mad that Garfield didn't make him the ambassador to France.
I
That's it.
mean, that's a valid reason to be mad at someone.
Sure. But was he even up for it? I actually don't know. But
I
the
have.
point is, it's a little much. And you could make the point that McKinley, the third president who was assassinated, was killed for a larger reason because he was killed by an anarchist. But at the end of the day, that's for a pretty niche political reason. And at the time, it had to do a lot more with, how progressive presidents were treating, I would imagine, union workers and so forth. And, JFK, we have basically a communist who decided he didn't like JFK and shot him. Putting aside the fun conspiracy theories that we can play around with, these people are being killed by individuals who have hyper specific motivations. And I don't think that this new thing is going to be any different. And and my point ultimately is that it doesn't really matter. Like we can talk about what the actual motivations are, but people have already made up their mind what the assassination attempt was about. It was either, we don't really know what it's going to be in terms of I guess we can call it the globalist mainstream opinion. I don't think we know what the narrative there is going to be yet, but we already know what, Trump fans and Trump defenders believe, which is that this is it's what Dugin said. It's part of this ongoing attempt to eliminate Trump from being able to be president of the United States. It's par for the course for these people. They're even less surprised than you and I are that this happened because they've already built up in their minds that they, quote unquote, the capital T, they will do whatever they can to get rid of this guy. And no matter what anyone says, they'll never change their mind about that because there's been very little meaningful effort to repudiate that. especially given that there were instances as time has gone on of basically trying to railroad Trump in terms of the legal process, however deserved it might be. I'm just saying that you're going to do these things, you're going to create a perception, and that perception is going to become a narrative, and then it just gets intensified and solidified as time goes on, because that's just how people are. So yeah, that's sort of my take on this, I guess. I didn't expect to make it the whole take, but that's really what my take is on this at this point.
I mean, yeah, and I really feel like this is just causing more chaos. And as I was going through this, I really watched through what all the Z channels were saying. 'Cause, that's what I do, and everyone's just super neutral. And this neutral attitude from everyone except Dugin, but Dugin's a lovely special case. But like I think this really shows that even Kremlin is now a bit freaked out, since there's also the other side, which definitely secret services might be looking into, because the Russia is known to also do assassinations from their old political goals, and meddling with stuff and the weirdness. What I really wanted to kind of point out here, which by the way, in a previous conversation, I mentioned this, and the idea was kind of stunning to you, about PTSD, and Trump. And I don't know, he's like what, nearly 80, or how old
He's in
exactly
his
Trump is?
70s. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can
well,
double check that for you, but yeah.
talking as a person who legit has PTSD and is dealing with it through therapy, and my God, my wife has been through a lot. There's a lot of trauma coming from that stuff. It's definitely not anything that you would want to go through. Like, there are, for example, there's various differentiation, but basically depends on how adjusted to everything you are and what's happening with you. It's just never simple. But you can have like nightmares, you have trouble sleeping, you can be easily startled or frightened, you can get aggressive, you can get like random impulses, you can just be paranoid. Like, for me, for me, what really struck me was, remember when I was back in the States, I went to the Six Flags while there was the tornado alarm. And the tornado alarm was exactly the same one as they use in Ukraine for like air raids and bomb zones. Yeah, and I freaked out. Like, I didn't like, my first reaction was just to go and duck and cover and just get down. Although that was quite okay, but calm down a bit, and then they pushed me towards the right idea. But yeah, it happens because you can really just feel all the happening stuff. You can really feel stuff. It's just, it sits in your brain and doesn't let go unless you work with it. And it's hard for me, who's a trained professional in these cases. I don't exactly know how Trump can deal with this. And it doesn't really. And by the way, to those of you who call him an absolute psychopath or sociopath, oh, no, 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 no. See, those things are related to you having an inflated ego of yourself. The problem is when yourself comes into trauma, that turns into, well, usually stronger reactions. People tend to get more paranoid. Like, look at Putin, and Putin and his attitude towards, basically, Putin and his, I don't even know how to put this properly. How he uses the big table, right? How he just guards himself from everyone all the time. That definitely also, he's just growing more paranoid by the day, and he might have issues when he gets elected, and he will have to see a therapist. And I'm not sure how that's normalized.
I don't know how much good it would do, but and that what really struck me when you told me about that initially, just you brought this insight in, is that it provided a sort of like really important, I think, context to what some people have been saying. And they've been saying it more from the context of like, oh, well, we should be afraid because, he's going to win and he's going to crack down. There's going to be an authoritarian crackdown, the likes of which we've never seen before, which to that I'd say there would have been a crackdown if it was Biden up there. I mean, there'd be a crackdown no matter who, because it's the president in a post Patriot Act world almost getting assassinated. Like, I don't think people appreciate that things have been, you know, primed for something like this and to get worse in terms of authoritarianism for a very long time. But with that said, you fleshed out the context of really why Trump being president is actually kind of unnerving at this point, and it's because of that angle. And dare I say it?
Because you can't really, can you? Because you can't escape it.
Right,
Not
exactly.
in these
And
cases. It's not something that you can just duff away. It leaves some scars, but then again, I mentioned Teddy Roosevelt before, but he had been through asthma and he had been through like the war, Spanish American one, right? And he's the more you are
when he
through that
lost
stuff.
his the love of his life, he lost his first wife. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, he had a unbelievably traumatic life, and he was just a very tough person, I think, in a lot
See,
of
the
ways.
thing is, you can work with it and you can deal with this stuff, and
Right.
well, then it's recommended to take long walks in nature, which is a
Hmm.
way how to deal with this
And
stuff.
he
Which is
definitely did that. Yeah.
yeah, and but that's the whole stupid idea is that that I don't think Trump is anywhere near that level of mental. I don't really think that Trump is even aware that this could be a thing.
Right. That's what I was getting at, is that that's what worries me, is that he's completely past being the kind of person who is self-aware on that level, and that can produce, as you were essentially saying, some pretty chaotic results. And that is what, in my opinion, actually further disqualifies him from being president. Like the senility of Joe Biden, I would say, precludes him from being president, and the potential for extreme PTSD from Donald Trump precludes him from being president. I just don't think that we should, have people in such fragile states leading things. Not to mention being so old in both cases. Trump is 78, by the way. He's way older than I thought for some reason. But yeah, you add those factors in with the other ones, including PTSD. I that is what concerns me, because it can result in, as you say, very paranoid behavior. Your comparison to Putin is very compelling in that sense too, and in terms of how it concerns me. Uh, like, I putting the platitudes aside, like, yeah, I don't like the idea of someone getting killed, even though I don't really like Donald Trump very much. And I like, and all the like wishing him full speedy recovery platitudes that we hear don't really get to the truth of what's going on here, which is that we are probably looking at someone who could very well be some form of the proverbial ticking time bomb. And that is concerning.
But I suppose that's what you get,
Yeah.
I guess.
the trade-off of democracy, I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, I mean, you got to pick someone as the president.
Yeah. And
Sadly.
we do have a third party candidate. He doesn't really talk quite that well, but
Oh,
he is
Bernie. Yeah, where's
no, no.
Bernie?
Oh my god, I wish. No, 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 no. No, RFK Jr., who is, I would say, in a totally different way, just as insane and unfit as both of the other candidates. But we do have three people running, and he has polled pretty well. I don't know the logistical details of how that'll work out. I believe someone already floated the idea of RFK Jr. replacing Biden for the Democrats, which would be very
But
interesting.
what happened to Bernie Sanders?
He just, I think he, I don't know. Okay, I'm just speculating.
I just don't know what happened to him. Honestly, he just went away, and I don't
He's
know.
around. He's still saying things. I actually haven't seen what he has said about this, but I'm sure it's more of the usual. And that's fine, whatever. But if you look at that guy, who's older than Biden, I believe, or maybe close to his age, still very sharp. A debate with him and Trump would have been still two old men, but at least they would have both been all there. But I think Bernie might be, and I'm not making a pun, burned out. I think he just, after what happened in 2016, I'm shocked that he tried again in 2020. But after that, like, I wouldn't want to run again either, because it's very clear that there was at least with 2016, it's clear there was a very big establishment push from the party to make sure he did not get the nomination. And that strikes me as so demoralizing that it would be silly to even bother running again. But I give him credit. He tried again and he did okay. But I wouldn't, especially at his age, I wouldn't want to try a third time at this point. I mean, even though he is beloved, but I think a lot of people have turned on him because he just can't win. And that's sort of a sad thing I've come to learn over the years, is that no matter how much you might like somebody as a leader, if they're a loser, if they're, the perennial loser, that doesn't really
Oh,
endear you to
you
people.
mean like United States Soccer Federation? Oh, okay.
Listen, you're on thin ice. I'd love to see you guys try to play some American football. Let's see how that goes over.
No, no, thank. No. I just that just that you had a similar issue with the Greg Berhalter and all that stuff that happened there. Just it was actually a bit relevant there. That is like the weirdest thing because you had sent me this article by Neil Ferguson
Oh yeah.
about we're all Soviet now, and I
We might have to go back to that if there's more to say, but it's a
well
good
we'll
one
go
for you to respond to.
we'll go and analyze this at some point because it's very long, like
Yes.
very very long, and I didn't feel like he understood, like he was completely genuine about all this stuff, because there was some things that I could say that not exactly. Situations are not similar. However, one thing though about how how these old men are basically dominating the political sphere, that was true though, and I feel like that should be mentioned. But like in the Soviet era, the kind of all these, we call them starpere, or old farts, yeah. And the thing is that they were seen as necessarily there because they had taken part in the revolution. They had revolutionary credentials, which meant that they had now, had now earned their place to finally be, out there with with others. You know, it was finally their turn to rule, I suppose. But but like you don't, like, no one in the, I'm sorry, but like no one in the United States has been even remotely near anything related to American Revolution, you know.
Right. And the sense I also get from what little I know of late Soviet history is that it wasn't characterized by violent upheaval until the sort of transition away from the Soviet Union. During the 80s, aside from the war in Afghanistan, it was characterized, at least in the West, so that's why you can probably correct me on this, as just being a really tired, old regime, like you're
Oh
kind of
yeah.
saying here. And there wasn't like this sense of doom and gloom and everybody saying that we're about to collapse. We have to do everything we can to prevent that from happening, which is sort of like the character, I guess, of American politics now, that feels very different than like the perception, at least that I have, of what Soviet politics were at that time. Like maybe if he was making a comparison between like now and early 90s Russia, it might make a little more sense, but then so many of the other parallels fall apart at that point because that was like way more chaotic than what we have now. So I'm getting what you're saying, is that it's an imperfect analogy, um, and I'm agreeing with you on that. I do really think though that his perception, as in Neil Ferguson's perception, was much more informed by the optics and aesthetics and tone and vibes, to use a Gen Z term, of the debate between Trump and Biden. It was just this sort of tired, pathetic vibe that like kind of made me feel like, from just watching clips of it, that like, what are we doing? Like, this is like silly. This is stupid. Why are we pretending that this is normal? And, I think this assassination attempt has totally upended those vibes in a lot of ways and replaced them with something else. But uh, there is a sort of sense of malaise, I think, that was present there, that I think was also present, at least from the outside looking into the Soviet Union in the later part of its life. And so I sympathize with the sense, with the sort of pessimistic outlook, but I don't think it's very accurate in that article, which people should read for themselves. It's on the Free Press, and it's called "We're All Soviets Now," and typical Neil Ferguson. It's very what did Jonah Goldberg call it? It like had like a sort of classic sort of I told you so vibe on it, which is just classic Ferguson. It's great, but in that sense. But yeah, it's a pretty weak comparison, I think. I think we're in a very different state, especially now that an attempted assassination has occurred. But I want to ask you, while I have you, was there sort of a sense of like identity crisis and urgency with the populace in the Soviet Union in the 80s, like in the late era that you know of, or was it very different?
There was this. I write a whole article about this where I explain a lot of this stuff. It's going to be published super soon. It's finally done, but it was a massive apathy. You felt like you couldn't do anything at all. There was no sense that something could ever change, and people were just too busy dealing with their own everyday stuff, basically.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's most Americans, you know. I think that's kind of how we are now in that sense. So I guess maybe there is a comparison in that sense, but there wasn't like a threat of like surges of radicalism.
Out there, like remember that Afghanistan war was going through all the time, right?
Yeah.
So there was that.
Was there like an equivalent of Tiananmen though? Tiananmen Square or the the upheavals in Eastern Europe as communism collapsed? Like
Well,
it
dude, there was this thing called the Baltic Way. I hope you've heard of that one.
I believe you have told me about it, but why don't you remind me?
That was the big thing where we in the Baltics decided that enough's enough, and we built a massive human chain,
Oh, right. Yes.
and then that's sort of how the USSR ended in a way.
It was like saying you can't bully us.
It was kind of like we were getting a bit tired of all this bullying nonsense. It gets kind
Mhm.
of silly after some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, I just don't. What I don't get the most about this is that how do you even get to your candidates in this way? Like what do you what's going on here? Why are we like this? What led to this in the first place? Because you how do you pick all of your candidates? Why did we end up with Trump running against Biden in the first place?
That requires somebody more qualified than me to actually answer it, but I can give you sort of my pulling out of my ass answer that I think a lot of American politics is based on vibes and based on popularity polling and Americans being very resistant to unexpected change and how much that has to do with larger factors is hard to say. You could make a sort of Marxist argument and say that it's about keeping the stability of the market in place and therefore the stability of the exploitation of the workers in place. But I don't think it's that simple, and that's too conspiratorial for my tastes. I think that it has to do with just Americans being very, yeah, there's no other word for it, very privileged. I think we like where we're at. We don't like things that upset that sense of balance, and we're especially sensitive to imbalance now after both the war on, well, it really started with 9/11, I'd say. Though I would even argue it started with Columbine, the first major school shooting, even though there's plenty of shootings before that, like mass shootings. But it started with Columbine and then 9/11 that created this sense of very dark urgency about forces trying to get us from the outside and forces trying to get us from the inside. And then that's what we were always focusing on. And then we saw the boogeyman around every corner. And then the financial crisis happened in '07, '08, right as the largest generation in history up until that point, as in my generation, was getting out of college. So that created a lot more uncertainty. So I think you create this sense of urgency, of fear, and uncertainty over a very long period of time, especially during the most like formative years of tens of millions of people. You're going to basically get people put in a position where they will crave as much certainty as possible. And certainty and stability are synonymous in that sense. So we're less likely to go for candidates that are new and unproven or untested. I think people voted for Biden, for example, uh, or I think he was nominated, but I think people also voted for him for the same reason, which is okay, so Trump was weird to say the least. He caused a lot of chaos just by existing. Whether that's fair or not is, I think, irrelevant because that's what happened. And I think because of that, that's how we landed with Biden. And because we have this tendency to try to keep things as stable and certain as possible, people didn't want to put their faith in, phonies like Ron DeSantis or Vivek Ramaswamy. And I'm saying phonies in air quotes there. I mean, I do think they were kind of phony. I think Trump is much more genuine
I
than they
find it
are
I
with who
find
he
it funny
is.
that
But
you have a candidate named Vivek because
yeah,
that reminds me of video game.
yeah, exactly. Vivek was interesting and compelling for about 5 seconds, and then he just started trying to be a mini Trump, and it was just depressing. But yeah, that's my point, is that like we had these new candidates. One of them, Vivek, was a millennial. That would have been really interesting. He's only like 2 years older than me. And with Biden, it's like, well, he was the guy who beat the wild card before, and now the wild card's the only one left. Well, maybe we should stick with the guy that we're sure could beat him instead of thinking about things from a sort of like day-to-day perspective. We had a chance, and I think the chance was missed a long time ago to replace Biden in a way that isn't going to feel desperate and pathetic. And I think it's because, though, to go back to your original question, why do we have these candidates? Because I think Americans don't like instability as much as we are an unstable, chaotic, wild west of a country. Like I think we pride ourselves in this sense of stability, whether it's real or not by the standards of other cultures, I don't know. But I'm saying that's what I think people want.
Stability. It's always elusive, isn't it? Because like
Yeah.
stability is a very Russian term. I've always been saying that you guys are way closer to Eastern Europeans than you are to Western Europeans. Because stability and the stability is why Putin's going on. He just says, "But do you want it to be like in the '90s all the time? All the chaos is, but sometimes you have to go through stuff that's like in the '90s and everything." And also weirdly enough is the fact that this affects us as well. It's not just the United States because for one, in Georgia, if you've heard how they had this their own like Russian law thing about foreign agents and everything, massive protests there. Well, the majority leader who ran all this stuff, he already is using the assassination for their own political motives and everything.
Hmm. Well, can't say I'm surprised. Yeah. I mean, well, I brought this up before we were recording that I mean, Americans are doing this too. Like the ones who have pet causes that have nothing to do with what just happened, they'll make it about what just happened. And I sort of see that as like, even though it is more, you could make the argument it's more directly
Yeah, but
related.
look,
People,
you recognize something. You recognize something because I'm reading from the Georgian public broadcasting quote. His name is Mamuka Midanarnadze. Oh, sorry, and he wrote quote in social media posts: "Shocking, outrageous, and alarming. An attack on a presidential candidate aimed at killing him in a cornerstone country of democracy." Then he went on to denounce the attack as a tactic of what he termed the global war party and liberal fascism, characterized by political violence, assassination attempts, subversive actions, and propaganda.
nothing to do with any of those things. I mean, it has to do with the person who did it and why he wanted to do it, and we don't know why that is yet. Maybe he will have a manifesto that says, "I am a globalist liberal fascist, and I need to stop Donald Trump from existing because that goes against my globalist liberal fascist plans." I
Yeah,
mean, but
but it
like,
really seems to me that these people, they're the auditory of Dugin. You
yeah.
know, like this is the people. These are the kind of people from whom Dugin actually writes, I suppose.
hmm Well, it's again, it is that desire of stability. The conspiracy theorist is not unhinged in the sense that they just believe in this swirl of chaos that can't be controlled. They believe in a very ordered world. Like that's the key thing about conspiracy theories. I don't think I've ever heard a conspiracy theory about things being completely chaotic and uncontrolled and everything is just randomized. Like I've never heard that. Now, I'd love to be pointed to that because that'd be really interesting. But the common thread of conspiracy theories, and I'm not the first person to say this is a very unoriginal thought, is that it's all about putting this locus of control on the parts of existence that are out of our control. And I mean, why do you think flat Earth actually is something people take seriously? Is because when you actually start thinking about the implications of being on a floating ball in space that is an insignificant speck in the greater galactic neighborhood, basically saying you have a flat Earth is proof of a grand design that overrides that horrifying existential randomness.
Oh well, look. I was born in the Soviet Union. just before its dissolution. Existential horror, nah, does not concern me. I, for one,
Hmm.
enjoy reading Lovecraft. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying is like I think Americans are kind of in a position where like they crave stability because we're so privileged. We're in this state where even the slightest nudge feels like instability.
But this is stupid because think about this. Think about this, okay? Okay, I'm in a position where I go to all sorts of violent places, right? But
Right.
there's been plenty of weird stuff happening in the States. You should be used to this by now.
I,
I mean,
I'm agreeing with you. Here's the thing. I agree with you. I'm just trying to explain what I think is going on through the heads of a lot of Americans because granted, I am coming from the place of somebody who also has dealt with crippling existential anxiety for much of his life and has learned to deal with it in various ways, some healthy, some not. And I really do think that a lot of people experience those same things, but their way of dealing with it, they filter it through different like avenues. And now, especially with the decline of, religion and so forth, politics becomes a viable alternative. And that leads to conspiratorial thinking. And I think, but it's not even just about politics, it's about everyday life. And again, I think like when you are hypersensitive to change because so much has happened that's made things so uncertain, the slightest nudge, like I was saying, is going to make you feel like you're about to teeter over the edge of a cliff. And looking for any kind of stability, whatever it might be, it doesn't matter if it has nothing to do with what's making you anxious or scared. You're looking for the anchor to grab onto.
you know,
That's what it
I will
is.
I will now appear extremely smart and culturally knowing to your listeners and my listeners as well. This reminds me of an episode because since we returned from Texas, we've been watching King of the Hill.
Oh
Like
yes.
we really enjoy that show with Evan because now we've seen a bunch of the cultural stuff and everything. But there was an episode there which I enjoyed thoroughly. It was all about Y2K.
Y2K, yeah. Wow, you taking me back.
No. It was all about Y2K, and the whole thing, the idea was that like Hank was trying to calm everyone down, but it didn't really work out that well because everyone around him was hoarding, and it was like a bunch of mess. And then he started doing his own weird things still because of this because he couldn't accept the fact that things could get more chaotic, so he had to like react to all this stuff. I mean, and this is one of the things where Stoicism has really helped me. The Stoic philosophy, the real one, not
Mm.
the Andrew Tate idiocy, right? But
Wait, he doesn't call himself a stoic,
oh,
does
he
he?
does, he
Oh,
does.
good
No, that he
lord.
does, and like fuck him. But the thing is, you should like right now, situation will be chaotic and weird, but always just learn to accept things as they are given and solve the real issues because a lot of problems happen when we try to solve the wrong issues basically. Latvian government, for example, tries to just ban everything all the time, and they're like even in your private life. I mean, when
That's
you
peak European policy, though, is like, we don't like it, let's ban it. Whereas the Americans are like, we don't like it, so we're just going to complain about it nonstop.
yeah, but basically your idea is that we like to pretend like if you want to pretend that everything's fine and if you want stability, then by not accepting the fact
Hmm.
that things are chaotic now, not dealing with the real issues, you're just making it worse.
Hmm. I was talking to my brother-in-law about this recently because he didn't like the framing that he's heard people say, which is you're going to go through life and you're going to experience failure and it's going to be horrible and then you're going to learn to deal with it. And I understand what he's saying, but what I explained to him was what that really means is like the real takeaway is you're going to experience failure because failure is inevitable. No one is 100% successful. That's literally never happened. There's always going to be failure.
Unless you're Chuck Norris.
Well, yes, that is the one
And
exception, I would
just
think.
that's just a stupid meme, but
Exactly. A very it's I think that meme is so dated that it's actually classic now. I think it's acceptable. It's sort of like making Austin Powers references now.
wait, what?
But
You can do that again?
I think you can. I think Borat, it's a little soon. Got to give it another couple years, and it'll be 20
Hmm.
years, and then we can do it again. But my point is that you're going to experience failure no matter who you are, unless you're Chuck Norris, throughout your life. The thing is, most of those failures are not going to be catastrophic. Most failures are actually pretty mundane and pretty mild, and you can bounce back from them. And then the more you bounce back from the small failures, the better suited you're going to be for the large ones,
Yeah,
as rare as they are. And sometimes
I
you might never experience any large failure, but you probably will because, we all die.
we sound like Joe Rogan, but better right now. No, no, but I have to agree with you there because for one, like what else? What else are you gonna do? Like there gonna be there's gonna be bad stuff happening no matter what. You cannot avoid it. And the thing is, like I said, people just tend to worry about everything all at once, which is I think a wrong take. Like when I see that my wife's she's by the way really tired because she's now getting used to her work at the zoo and a bit messy. But I tell people that all the time. Like if you just sit and worry about what's gonna happen, then you're not gonna solve anything. Nothing's gonna move or change. It's just that you have to accept things as well as they are, really. And after that, you can like start to focus on what's really an issue. You know,
There's a great meme that I saw appear on Instagram, but I think it's been on TikTok. It's all over the place, and it's of the great comedian Bill Burr, and I think he was on Tim Ferriss's podcast, and it's just like 10 seconds long of him just saying, "You're going to be fine." And what's the point of worrying about not being fine when you can just focus on being here now? It's better that I'm butchering it. And so I'll probably have to find it, maybe put it in the episode when we're done recording or something. But he's basically saying, what's the use of ruining right now, worrying about not being fine because you'll deal with it later when you're not fine. And I think that is sort of like from what I understand, that is sort of the Stoic philosophy.
yeah. And the thing is that a lot of people when you are in a weird position of stress and trouble around you, a lot of people like to just sit down and worry. Meanwhile, you could be like splitting it up into tiny solvable problems and solving them one by one, and you will not be able to solve everything, but at least it's doing something that's productive. Because most part what people are afraid of is sort of this inability to cope with issues, because everything usually happens all at once and it seems so big and so horrible.
And I don't want to open up a can of worms, but I also think that another reason a lot of Americans, at least, latch on to things like this, like existential threats to our polity, that kind of thing, is because that doesn't really require you to take all that much responsibility. Because we all recognize that the health of the nation or, all that can't be fixed by one person. I think we all kind of know that.
Yeah, but you also are pretty strong. I mean, like I said, that was in the previous one. I've lost that part, but there was this Pro Z guy. I'll just try to find the name. Oh, I can't really get it. I think it was Medvedev. Not no relation to that ex-president Medvedev, but Alexander Medvedev. I remember his name, and he wrote about how everything in the United States that not like having a horrible president is going to destroy the United States. It's just impossible. So look, if pro Kremlin guys are doing like saying that they should be worried more because what if evil Americans, right? Then just you'll be fine. You'll manage.
I think so too. I mean, I don't harbor illusions, as they say, about things just being rosy. I think that we are in for more violence, just because I think it's a better bet to make. Uh, but I don't think we're heading headlong into civil war, because I don't think we can have a civil war like the one we had before, because we're not neatly divided along
And
territorial lines that way.
look, one important
And
thing is also that you're not alone.
right.
Like, because again, we spoke about Mark Rutte and wait, Robert, oh yeah, Mark Rutte, the new General Secretary of NATO, and my friend here, who knows a lot about foreign politics, he said that his nickname is Trump Whisperer. People are we're preparing for this. We're preparing for possible Trump presidency and the well everything that is likely to happen with us with that.
You mean you're
It's
not running around with your heads cut off like a chicken and just being like, oh no, America's going to become a fascist dictatorship? You're actually thinking about this practically and pragmatically, like, let's deal with this as it comes and we'll worry about the implications later if there are any.
dude, we not like we in the EU have any choice in the matter, really.
True.
Like,
Fair
what else
enough.
are we supposed to do?
Right. And okay. See, I guess maybe that's my attitude. Why people get mad at me, especially my more, like, I guess you could say, typical normie Democratic friends and family get mad at me for this, where they're like, how are you so sanguine? I'm like, because it like you can do your best, but you can't do anything about it. Like just sometimes crappy people get elected into office. That's just what happens. It's always been that way. Do we think that Trump is uniquely bad in some grand 250-year timescale? I'm not willing to say that because I don't know. I honestly do not know, and I'm not going to pretend like I know. And if I don't know, somebody who spends way too much time reading about history and weird, obscure corners of it, I don't think the average person knows either. I'm just going to be that arrogant and just say it because that's what bothers me, I think, so much about the existential framing that I brought up earlier.
Huh. Well, you see, Trump might not be the best president ever, but it could be worse. Like, what was his name? Dan Quayle?
Can't spell potato. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so many other scenarios that are worse.
I have a very good. I just remember a little solution thing here that we spoke about. Remember about the whole safety procedures from this? I think the Soviet man who saved the world episode thing about Chernobyl, about how the Soviet Union worked. See, Soviets saved time on safety measures in the sense that they would not prepare for the stuff that was like super unlikely to actually happen. Like they prepared for the stuff that happened 98% of the time, but did nothing for the stuff that would be out there 1% of the time. And the problem is the stuff that happened 1% of the time, yeah, it also sometimes happens. And I think that you guys were so just for some reason so used to normalcy, you sort of forgot that this last 1% also can exist. Because I don't see any reason why you should totally be all doom and gloom all the time. Okay, maybe one reason. Maybe one reason. It's very hard to buy good Latvian beer in the United States.
Unless you live in Chicago, I would assume that is probably true.
Look. In a way, my last words here is going to be like, remember the time when the guy who leaked like secret tank documents on the War Thunder Discord because he was like proving that didn't. This is the same story. This is the same stuff basically. It's exactly the same thing in a way. But yeah, he was also like, no, you're wrong. Let me prove it to you. Well, he did, and then everyone was freaking out because wait, the people just got confused. But that's how it is. That's normal. Normal in the sense that you're gonna have to you would have to deal with this anyway. So and this stuff it's weird and strange, but these things do happen sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff do be like that, okay?
Stuff do be like that, and it's been like that in our lifetimes. I mean, there have been assassination attempts all throughout American history.
That's kind of my thing that it's kind of like you notice when people who are like younger start throwing out memes that were funny when you were like a kid. It comes back a circle, but it happens like every time this happens. It's a shock and it's horrible, but just take a deep breath. Take a look back and remember that this isn't the first time. This is literally like you've had, and now we know 4 assassinated presidents. This is just an attempt. Send him to a therapist. Get better candidates. I don't know.
Right. Polarization has been this bad, if not worse, before. It really has. The 70s come to mind, but obviously the 1850s and 1860s. That's why I refer to, the worst case scenario being members of Congress assaulting each other on the floor. That's when you got to be worried because that was what happened before the last time we actually had a proper civil war here.
Oh, whoa, that was back then. I've seen people in Moldovan parliament do that like a month ago.
Well, I think that happiness is mandatory in this case because it should be. I'd like it to be. So I'll let you close us out by giving us that and, of course, the trademark Dos Vidania.
Dos Vidania, tovarищи. Remember, happiness is mandatory. And thank you, Alex, for having this talk. And hey, we got to, and once again, Dugin sneaks in everything.
I think he'll sneak in every single time. Thanks a lot, man.
You gotta be fine. And even if you're not gonna be fine, isn't it better to just exist thinking you're gonna be fine until it's not fine? And then when it's not fine, then you can just fucking handle it then. But there's no sense to ruin right now, right?